Well, hello everyone. So as Ashley said, we're going to talk about Meridian Validation 101 today. So the key here is we just want to understand the benefits and requirements of validating a Meridian system. So we're just going to go through some key components of what that entails, and we're really going to focus in on the Meridian and the Power Web functionality. So just a quick introduction to myself. Jeremy Clay, Document Management Specialist here at Hagerman. I got a bachelor's of architectural technologies from Rankin Tech School in St. Louis. I've been working in the industry of pharma for about 13 years. I was the corporate administrator for the Meridian system, did a lot of validation projects with the pharma company I was with, also doing some project management, and been with Hagerman Company for 2 years now, doing installs, upgrades, and kind of customizations of Meridian systems for clients. So just a quick overview of some of the main topics we're going to cover today in the presentation. First off, we're going to talk about what is validation and what does it mean. And we'll move into, okay, we know what it means now, so what does a Meridian system validation mean? How does it apply to Meridian systems, and what all does it entail? Then we'll go to what's required for Meridian system validation. We'll talk about the different levels of validation and kind of how those are developed and what entails in them. What are some of the benefits of the Meridian system validation, and what are some of the downfalls? You know, it's not everything is a perfect scenario with a validated system. So there are some downfalls or some hurdles you have to overcome. Then we'll look at some examples of how things are validated in Meridian. And then we'll finish it up with kind of just a summary of what we talked about. So just a quick overview of what our schedule is today. So like I said, first we're going to talk about what does the word validation really mean. So from the Webster Dictionary, validation is an act, process, or instance of validating, especially the determination of a degree of validity of a measuring device. So it really just refers to validate. So to talk on validate is to make legally valid, to grant official sanction to by marketing, to confirm the validity of, to support or collaborate on a sound and authoritative basis, and to recognize, establish, or illustrate the worthiness or legitimacy of. So this is the Webster Dictionary version of it. This is kind of my summary of what really validation is to verify that a defined process provides a specified outcome as documented in a validation plan. So to simplify just a little further, it's to verify that expected results are achieved during a specified process. So you're going to go through the steps and you're going to prove that the outcome was exactly what you thought it was going to be. That's pretty much what the whole purpose of this is you're proving that the steps you said you're going to take are what you were done and you got the desired outcome. All right, so next I wanted to go through some key terminology and abbreviations that are used in Meridian validation environments. So I'm just going to go through one by one and touch on them, and then at the end, if you have questions about each one, we can talk about it here. So first is a validation plan, or the acronym is VP. This is the overarching plan that will establish the validation purpose and requirements. So without a validation plan, you really don't have any type of validation, because the validation sets everything in place. It puts your rules in place. It establishes roles and permissions of who's going to do what, what approvals are going to be required, what documents you're going to provide, and all that. So the validation is kind of a key piece to setting up a validation of a system. Next, it's a good idea to have a functional specification. So this just establishes the functionality requirements of the Meridian system. So there's no question down the road of, hey, do we want our system to do X, Y, and Z? It's already been established, and there's no question about what the purpose of this system is. It's already defined in this functional specification, or the FS. The design specification, or the DS, this establishes the design intent for the Meridian software. So the configuration, how things are set up, all the key components to this are captured in a design specification, which you can use to, in a disaster, recreate, or if you have questions on, or somebody's trying to learn a new system and how it functions, the design specification is a great document to share with them. The next one is a data migration plan, or a DMP. This is an established plan to verify all required data has successfully migrated or upgraded into a validated system. So when systems are upgraded or they move from an old environment into a new environment, we have to verify that, hey, we had X amount of documents in the old system. Now we still have X amount of documents in the new system. The details around that and how you're providing that verification is established in the data migration plan. So this is another key component to verify and to prove that, hey, we didn't lose any information, hey, nothing is missing, it's all transferred successfully. The traceability matrix, or a TM, this is a list of all system requirements that the system must perform to satisfy the validation plan. So everything that supports your validation plan, your functional specification, your design specification can be laid out in your trace matrix, and you make sure that all items are reviewed and critical and proven to work as they should within the system. So this is just kind of a check to make sure that everything that you said the system has to do is tested against, and make sure that it does operate as intended. So that was a traceability matrix. The install qualification, or IQ. This is just a list of steps to perform a Meridian installation, whether it's on the server or on a client's computer, or during the configuration of an enterprise server or a job. Anything that you're installing or you're setting up in place, there can be an IQ, or an install qualification, that lists out step by step everything that has to be done, so that no steps are missed, things are not overlooked, things are not incorrectly entered. It's all spelled out in this document so that there's no confusion and no questions, and it really reduces the chances for mistakes during your install. So followed from an IQ, there's a performance qualification, or a PQ. So this is test ran after the IQ is executed to verify that the Meridian system is performing as expected. So this is, you're not going to test every function within Meridian, but a lot of your key components, the main functionality that you need the system to do, gives you a chance to go through and before you release the system, check off and test that, hey, yes, the system does do exactly what we need it to do. And that's achieved with a performance qualification, or a PQ. Next item or document that we put together is a user acceptance test, or a UAT. So these are tests that are executed by the users of the system to verify that the system meets all requirements of the traceability matrix. So once you have all the requirements that it does, the user acceptance test is where users go through and they actually test and make sure that every item listed in the traceability matrix is covered, and that it does function as intended, and the users are happy with the results of it. So once again, this is just another step that you can do to verify that, hey, before we release the system live, everybody has reviewed this and it's accepted. So there's no questions at the end of why things work the way they do, or something is missed. You had a chance to look at it and review it in the UAT, or the user acceptance test. So next we'll talk about deviations, or anomalies. So these are documentation that's explaining any variation of activities specified from the validation plan. So anywhere that you have to change something that's spelled out in the document, you have to document that with a deviation or an anomaly. So from your list of things that you follow, if you have to add a step, or if a step doesn't make sense anymore because it's a new version or it was overlooked, you have to document that using deviations or anomalies, so that we know exactly why we did or didn't do something and what the effect of it was. And then the final thing to talk about is the final summary report, or the FSR. So this is a summary of the executed validation plan, activities, a list of all the executed documents, any deviations, anomalies, and a short conclusion. So this kind of wraps up all the activities that happened in your validation in one document. It'll tell you what the purpose was, all the tests that you ran to review and prove that, and then it'll give you a quick summary saying, yep, this passed with no anomalies, this passed with 2 deviations, and it gives you the document numbers for those so that you can quickly find and review this information as needed. If you're in an inspection or if you have an issue with your install, you can go back and look at this and see what exactly happened. So I know I went through this kind of quickly, but this is a nice summary of some key validation terms that are used in projects whenever we're doing validated Meridian systems. All right, so next we'll talk about what is a Meridian system validation in general. So it's a series of documents used to provide evidence that a system has been properly set up and tested for functionality. So once again, we're verifying that something functions the way that we said it was going to. So some examples of this are a validation plan has been fully executed and approved by the required parties. User requirements tests, or UATs, are fully executed and signed off on. All system requirements identified in the traceability matrix have been verified by the user acceptance test. And the functionality specification and the design specification have been properly documented and approved into the right systems. So these are kind of some key components of what it actually takes to have a Meridian validation. So to validate a Meridian system, we're going to establish a validation plan that outlines exactly what has been done within the validation process. We're going to designate what documents will be required for the validation. So just because we listed some documents earlier doesn't mean you have to execute every one of those. Maybe it doesn't make sense for you to go through the time to set up every piece of documents that we talked about. You can scale those back and designate in your validation plan which ones exactly you are going to execute. You're going to establish the roles for the validation of the software. So you're going to know ahead of time who's going to have to review each document, who's going to have to approve documents, so that you can coordinate activities and try to reduce the amount of time where you're waiting for signatures and things. So another thing that it takes to validate is we're going to verify all required data migration was achieved successfully. So therefore, like we mentioned earlier, X amount of documents from old system, X amount of documents in new system, and everything transferred correctly. And then we're going to document any changes or failures as defined in the validation plan. So anywhere that things do not occur, we're going to document that it didn't occur, and then we're going to explain how we corrected it, how it was reviewed. All right, so next we're going to go to what is required for a Meridian system validation. So a system validation is fully dependent on what is defined and required in the validation plan. So like I said previously, just because several documents are available doesn't mean that we have to execute each one of those. The validation plan establishes what we have to execute, and then as long as we follow every step in that validation plan, everything should be good. So all systems should use the validation plan to define what required to meet the needs of the company. The documentation required can vary drastically depending on the needs of the company. So are you required by regulatory agency to provide this documentation? Or are you just doing it for comfort of the users, or for your comfort as a company that things are being executed as they say they could? There's way less risk if it's a comfort thing versus you could be fined or shut down by a regulatory agency. What are the potential concerns of the system implementation? So what could go wrong during this implementation if we don't document? How can we reduce that risk and weigh those options to find out what exact what exactly you should include in your validation. So if you're unsure, companies can perform a GXP assessment to determine validation status. So this is just a list of several questions to determine if a validation is required, and if it is, at what level should you do. There's lots of templates available out online for things like this. So they're pretty basic questions that really help you sum up and determine quickly if you require GXP or validated system, and if you do, to what level. So are there different levels of validation? Validation can be done to many different levels. A company should establish the level of validation efforts in the validation plan. So like I said, once again, everything's going to refer back to the validation plan because that's what establishes this whole process. So once again, you want to list out what documents will be executed, who will revise and sign documents. For Meridian system implementation, the following is recommended at a minimum. Any upgrade or migration that I do, whether it's validated or not, these are three things that I typically always make sure to take a picture of. For the data migration, always take a file count from the Meridian administrator. Always do a search in the vault to make sure that all of the documents are accounted for before and after, and then properties of the stream files. So at a bare minimum, I would suggest that everybody do at least this as a validation step during the migration. So this is just some examples of exactly what I was talking about. So inside the Meridian Vault, you can, in the administrator tool, you can see the number of documents listed here. Then if you go inside the server here, you can search on document counts. And then over here, you'll also see that there's a file size and contents of folders that we can compare before and after. So we would do these documents before we did anything. And then once we migrated or upgraded in the new system, we would verify that numbers matched exactly so that we validated that change. And so what are the benefits of a Meridian system validation? So we could go on for a while about some of these, but one of the big ones is first right time, saving time and paperwork. So what this means is you don't have to go through several times and retest things and change things and test them a second and third time. Once the documentation is developed, it should be tested and approved so that you know that, hey, once we execute this, everything runs as it should and everything's gonna have the right outcomes, and we're not gonna have to go through and redo and change things ad hoc. We have a plan in place that is proven to work, and that's what you're gonna proceed with. So with documented process in place, you'll drastically reduce the chance for mistakes or missteps during an implementation or an upgrade. So like I had mentioned, there's lots of things that go on during an install or an upgrade that it's easy to overlook certain steps or to skip something or to do things out of order even. Sometimes that can have a big impact on your project. So if things are documented correctly in an IQ, you follow step by step and you know exactly what you have to do. You have to sign off on each step and a lot of times provide evidence, whether it's a screenshot or a numeric value of how many documents or whatever it is, you're asked to record that so that we know for sure things were executed and things are going to give us the expected outcome that we were looking for. So that's another big benefit of a Meridian system validation. Another one is just the confidence in the process being completed with minimal deviations or anomalies. So if you have a documented process and you already know that, hey, these are the steps that's required for this task, you're not going to run into deviations or changes from a approved document. Where if you're not following a scripted document and you have to go through and change things 3 or 4 different times, that can be a lot of extra rework, a lot of extra retesting, a lot of approvals from people who have to take time to look back at things. So it really minimizes the amount of time and the headache that you have to do with the deviation anomalies or the paperwork side of things. documented processes to review and start for the next Meridian upgrade or implementation. So once you've done this once, you have a great starting point for your next validated project, right? So if you're upgrading your Meridian system, or if you're installing a new site and you're going to add a vault, or you're going to do something different, you already have a process in place that's approved to use as a starting basis. So now you're not recreating everything from scratch. Now moving forward, you're just going to tweak it and modify it a little bit to meet whatever the next project's requirements are. And then there are a few downfalls or shortcomings of a Meridian validated system too, I would say. So some of the downfalls or shortcomings is probably a little better term, but overall, validating paperwork can add complexity and time to a Meridian implementation or upgrade project. So if you overdo it, like I said, if you don't assess what's required for your validation of your company, you could be spending a lot more time and a lot more effort in creating paperwork that's not necessary, or waiting for approvals that's really going to impact your timeline when it's not necessary. So it's really important to do that GXP assessment to find exactly what level of validation you should do for your company. And then moving forward, you're not overdoing the paperwork and you're not missing out on stuff that really you could benefit from documenting. So it's a fine line there that the GXP assessment will really help you kind of find that path that you should be on. So the review and approval process can add additional time in projects if not properly coordinated. So once again, in the validation plan, if you don't know who's signing what documents and at what stage of the process approvals are going to be required, and you're trying to pull people in last minute, everybody's busy, so trying to get somebody to stop what they're doing and come sign your documents so that your project can continue can waste time. It can cause harsh feelings between people and the companies, and it can cost you time and money in your project. So as long as that's set up, once again, as long as it's set up ahead of time and it's defined in your validation plan, you can say, hey, look, Jeremy, you're going to approve these documents when they're ready for review. We should be done in the next 2 weeks. Can you please put something on your calendar? And as long as that's properly coordinated, you can really reduce this risk as well. And then the last one I had was all deviations and anomalies add additional time for documenting corrective actions. So like I mentioned earlier, with deviations, anytime something does not get the achieved outcome or has to be modified to get the desired outcome, you have to document that, which then again, that creates more paperwork and more time and more effort. So if you put the time in up front and you develop a nice streamlined IQ document or OQ document that has been reviewed and developed in by somebody who knows what they're doing and they spent some time and effort on it, you're really going to be able to reduce the number of documents that you have to create for deviations and anomalies, which when you do create those, it does take extra time and effort because more documents to have to prove what happened, then you got to define how you corrected it, and then you have to get reviews again and sign-offs again. So it can add time, but once again, if you put the time in up front and you develop the proper documentation, it's another issue that can be avoided. All right, so next, we'll talk about what are some examples of Meridian system validation. So just going to go through some quick lines here that kind of summarize what are some examples. So documenting the number of documents imported or migrated between systems, kind of like what we talked about on slide 16. So I think this will be sent out afterwards if anybody wants to look back at that. But basically just showing that documents transferred from the old system to the new system match up and everything is as expected. Following an installation qualification or IQ during a server installation. So that's a way that you're validating your system. You're going through and installing software step by step, and you're making sure that you have the desired outcome. So that's another example of validation effort. Users executing a user acceptance test or a UAT to verify all system functionality prior to the release of the system in production. I know we talked about that earlier, but that's the user's chance to kind of get in the system and verify that, hey, this does function the way that I expect it to. I don't have a problem with any of my key tasks, they all function as expected. So when the system's released to production, there's no questions, there's no comments, there's no concerns. Everybody had the time to review and execute this. So we didn't really talk about exporting the Vault net file configuration as a final design specification. So this is a very easy thing for an administrator to do. Is once a Meridian Vault is established and up and going, you can export the configuration file and document that as, hey, here's our as-built, or here is our design specification at the end of the project. So this is the exact configuration that our Vault was set up to. I mean, this is what we're going to do moving forward. It's not going to change until, it should not change until something is documented to change that, or there's a need or a reason to change that. At that point, once a change is made, they should export that net file again. So you always have a documented configuration of what your Vault setup should be, and it is. And then once again, the final summary report, just going to summarize all the tests that were executed, that were completed to finalize the validation process, and a summary of what exactly the conclusion was. So, like I said, this is a very good document to keep on file so that you can look back and have a nice summary of what was done, so that if people have questions on, hey, how can you provide this? How are you sure that you didn't lose any data? What were the steps taken? Is this module applied? Is it not? Your final summary report here would be a great place to go to start to find the proper documentation needed for that. So to summarize again, kind of wrapping up here a little quickly. So, but just to summarize and look back at this, the validation of a Meridian system is to simply prove expected results are achieved during a Meridian system upgrade. So the whole point of a validation is just to prove that what you said you're going to do gets done. And that's the whole purpose of it. Like I said, some sort of Meridian validation is highly recommended to be used by almost any company, even if it's just, like I said, a document count verification, a screenshot proving that you can log in and log out, some very basic stuff. But whatever the level determined by your validation team should be executed. So in the third one there, again, determine the proper level of validating during a project development. So don't wait until halfway through a project and decide that you want to or not to validate a system. Put the work in up front and decide what you're going to do, establish validation plan, and then make sure you execute everything in that validation plan. So don't overdo it, but then again, don't sell yourself short so that you're not getting the benefits that you should get from a validated system. And then the last point here is use a validation plan or a VP as the governing document to list all requirements and the roles associated with them for the process. So I know we took a little short here, but I just wanted to give people a time to reflect on that. And if you have any questions, feel free to either post them on the meeting chat here, or you can send them to Ashley or myself at any point. So I'm going to hand it back to Ashley, and thank everybody for your time today.
Okay, I'll do some wrap up here while I'll keep an eye on the question panel. So do enter any questions that you may have for Jeremy to answer. First of all, we thank you for attending today. And if you have any questions, you can simply reply to that confirmation or reminder email you received, and we can get those to Jeremy or your sales rep after this presentation is over. So feel free to send those on to us. Also, a reminder that a short survey will pop up as we close down today. And also, just a reminder that you will receive an email tomorrow, which will contain a link for the recording of this presentation, so you can go back and watch it again if you need to. And I don't see any questions coming in, so we will go ahead and wrap things up for today. But again, thank you, Jeremy, for the presentation. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Ashley.